Hey guys, tonight we drift into a place you probably wouldn't choose voluntarily. A medieval battlefield at the exact moment everything goes wrong. Instead of easing into sleep on a soft pillow, you're blinking awake on damp grass, surrounded by the metallic smell of armor, the creak of leather straps, and the distant rumble of men moving in formation. There's a faint chill brushing your skin, and when you inhale, the air tastes like ash, fear, and a hint of wet soil. You sit up slowly, as if waking from a nap you didn't schedule, and immediately realize that your modern muscles, your soft desk job posture, and your highly sensitive 2025 nervous system are not prepared for any of this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I always love seeing our little nighttime map of the world light up. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink again, trying to clear the haze in your vision. The world around you is just beginning to stir. Dawn stretches a grey-blue line over the horizon, and distant silhouettes shuffle around campfires, tightening straps, adjusting helmets, muttering prayers, or simply staring ahead with that look of practiced resignation. You hear a blacksmith hammering something nearby, each strike oddly calming, like someone tapping on the door of your patience. You slowly rise, taking a shaky step before realizing you're already wearing some kind of padded gambesson. It feels like someone wrapped you in a thick, itchy quilt soaked in humidity. The garment is stiff, uncomfortable, and heavier than it looks. One historical fact flashes in your mind. Soldiers often slept in pieces of their armor to save time, which, frankly, feels like the medieval version of sleeping in jeans. Possible, yes, but clearly invented by people who hate comfort. As you stand and stretch, a young man passes by, eyes half closed, carrying a spear twice his height. He looks about 16. There's a quirky tidbit for you. Many medieval armies had teenagers who'd already seen more battles than you've seen laptop updates. He nods at you, as if you're supposed to know exactly what's happening. You nod back, doing your best impression of a seasoned warrior who definitely knows where the restroom is located. Spoiler, there isn't one. A horn blares in the distance, low and mournful, and your heart rate decides to jump a full 20% for no good reason. The ground trembles faintly as units form up in long, disciplined lines. You're still trying to figure out where you belong. There are shields to your left, archers to your right, and you're standing in the awkward middle like someone who wandered into the wrong classroom. A stocky man with a patchy beard notices your confusion and claps a heavy hand on your shoulder. "Fall in," he says, pointing you toward a cluster of men with mismatched gear. They look tired but alert, like the sort of people who get into bar fights because someone breathed wrong. You shuffle toward them. "What's your weapon?" one of them asks. His tone suggests you should already be holding something dangerous. You glance at your hands empty, not even a butter knife. You shrug helplessly, and he groans. "Great, another one of those." Historians still argue whether medieval armies always issued weapons to every soldier, or if some men were expected to bring their own gear. Judging by your current situation, you're apparently on the bring-your-own-sword plan. A moment later, someone tosses you a short, slightly rusty spear. It lands at your feet with a thud that implies, "Good luck." You won't. You attempt to lift it, and wow, your expectations of weight were severely off. Medieval weapons weren't impossibly heavy, but they also weren't featherlight movie props. You wobble like a toddler holding a broom too big for their height. A man next to you chuckles under his breath. That's joke number one. Even your bad posture is historically accurate. As formations shift and align, you realize just how loud a medieval battlefield becomes before the fighting even starts. Men shout orders, shields clatter, horses snort impatiently. Somewhere, someone sneezes violently, and everyone pretends that's not an omen. You try to take deep breaths, but the tension in the air is like static building before a thunderstorm. Another soldier leans toward you and mutters, "If you run, stay low. If you stand, stay still. If you move, don't trip." Not exactly reassuring advice, but probably the most honest pep talk you'll get today. You scan the horizon, where opposing forces gather a distant mass of helmets, spears, banners, and an unnerving calm. Everything feels unreal, dreamlike, almost slow motion. Yet somewhere inside, Your instincts are screaming that you have seconds, maybe minutes, before all of this erupts. Someone behind you taps your shoulder and hands you a dented helmet. You slide it on. It immediately presses your ears, muffling sounds and amplifying your own breathing. Tiny slits limit your vision, and a faint metal smell tickles your nose. You get a sudden appreciation for how brave medieval soldiers truly were, fighting while half blind, half deaf, and entirely uncomfortable. You also gain appreciation for modern ergonomic design. A final horn blasts sharp and commanding. The entire line stiffens. A ripple of movement spreads through the ranks. Shields rise, spears angle forward, and men shift their weight with the collective whisper of boots grinding dirt. You swallow hard. Whatever is about to happen, you're officially part of it, and you probably won't survive a minute. You barely have time to adjust your helmet before someone shoves a bundle of metal plates toward you. "Put this on," the bearded man growls, as if handing you a birthday present you absolutely didn't want. The armor clinks, scrapes, and complains like an old shopping cart. You grip the pieces awkwardly, trying to remember every movie scene where a knight dons his gear in 30 stylish seconds. Spoiler, those scenes lied to you. The first thing you realize is that medieval armor isn't just armor, it's a lifestyle choice. A slow, heavy, sweaty lifestyle choice. You slip one arm through a piece that might be a pauldron or might be decorative scrap metal, hard to tell. As you fasten a leather strap, another strap comes loose on the other side. You're basically wrestling an angry metal octopus. A soldier helps you buckle the breastplate, tightening it with the enthusiasm of someone adjusting a corset on a runaway horse. The pressure immediately squeezes your lungs. You suck in a breath that barely fits. "Comfortable?" he asks. You nod, though you're pretty sure your ribs just filed a formal complaint. There's your first joke of the section. Congratulations, your torso is now legally a panini. But here's the part no video game ever prepares you for. The weight distribution. Plate armor wasn't unbearably heavy historical fact, but it required muscles you don't have. Wearing it feels like carrying grocery bags for a mile, every hour, non-stop. Medieval knights trained from childhood. You do push-ups sometimes when you remember. You try taking a step. Your knee lifts only halfway before the greave smacks into your thigh. Another soldier snickers. "First time?" he asks. You want to answer, yes, and hopefully the last, but the helmet muffles your voice, making you sound like you're talking from inside a laundry basket. Historians still argue whether the average foot soldier's armor varied drastically by region, or whether most troops used simpler gear, depending on wealth and rank. Judging from your mismatched ensemble, you've landed somewhere between budget knight and garage sale mannequin. As the army begins to shuffle forward, you feel the armor's true challenge. Heat. You're barely 10 steps in before sweat trickles down your spine, pooling in places you didn't know could pool. The padded gambeson underneath traps warmth like a medieval sauna. Soldiers actually used to warm themselves in winter this way. Another quirky tidbit. But in this moment, you'd trade everything for a hand fan and someone who knows how to use it. Someone bumps your shoulder, jolting you sideways. The plates clank loudly, echoing in your helmet. You momentarily lose your balance, wobbling like a bowling pin that refuses to fall. A soldier steadies you with a grunt. "Walk with your center low," he instructs. "Otherwise you'll topple." Great. You're basically a toddler learning to walk again, except toddlers aren't about to face a cavalry charge. As your formation moves closer to the field, you notice how restrictive everything feels. Your arms don't swing naturally. Your shoulders pinch every time you turn. Your hips feel locked in a slightly awkward dance pose. Medieval fighting manuals, yes. Those existed, often emphasized footwork and balance, things you cannot achieve right now unless a miracle occurs or someone oils your joints like a medieval tin man. The bearded man from earlier strides beside you, effortlessly adjusting his gear mid-march. He lifts his visor and says, "Armor's only useful if you know how to move in it." You want to tell him you can barely breathe in it, let alone move. But before you can answer, he slams his visor shut again as a shout echoes down the line. "Shields up!" You fumble with your spear, nearly dropping it as you attempt to lift your non-existent shield. Someone behind you sighs dramatically and shoves a round wooden shield into your left hand. You didn't even know you were supposed to carry one. You strap your forearm into the loops, and the weight drags your arm downward. You immediately regret every skipped gym day. A historical fun fact enters your mind. Shields weren't just defensive tools, they were identification markers, tactical positioning guides, and sometimes dinner trays in camp. Today, Yours is just a large wooden apology waiting to happen. As you raise it, your muscles tremble. Shield walls look cool in movies, but the reality, holding 20 pounds of wood at face height, feels like attempting to high-five the sun indefinitely. A horn wails again, short, urgent. Your whole formation halts. Suddenly, the world seems to stop breathing. Men shift nervously. Horses snort restlessly. Somewhere, metal scrapes against metal as weapons are drawn in one unified whisper. Through the slit of your helmet, you catch sight of the enemy line gathering momentum. The bearded man leans toward you and murmurs, "When they hit, bend your knees. Don't lock them, or the armor will topple you backward." Another soldier adds, "If you fall, roll to your side. Don't fight it." You're collecting survival tips like coupons, hoping one will actually work. The opposing force moves closer, shields glittering, banners snapping in the wind, spears angled like a field of thorns. Your breath fogs the inside of your visor. You tilt your head slightly, trying to see better, but the helmet only shifts your field of vision by 2 disappointing millimeters. A soft thud echoes from somewhere ahead, then another. You realize stones and arrowheads are already hitting the ground before the main impact arrives. One clinks off your helmet, delivering a ringing note that vibrates down your spine. That's joke number 2. Congratulations, your head is now a medieval dinner bell. Someone yells, "Tighten ranks." You're pushed closer to the soldiers beside you until your armor plates scrape theirs. You inhale, feeling the heat of so many bodies pressed together in fear and determination. A nearby soldier mutters a prayer under his breath, something about saints and protection. Another reaches into his pocket and rubs a small charm, maybe bone or stone. Superstitions were rampant among medieval troops, especially in moments like this. One soldier whispers, "Historians still argue whether talismans helped morale or just gave us something to cling to." You suspect the second reason. The ground begins to tremble beneath your feet, not from marching this time, but from something heavier, louder, more rhythmic. Horses. A cavalry unit begins its advance from the enemy's flank. Your shield suddenly feels too small, your armor too loose, your legs too wobbly. The bearded man to your right mutters, "Here we go." As the enemy charge begins to accelerate, you grip your spear, raise your shield, bend your knees, and silently accept that medieval armor protects you until it doesn't. And, right now, it feels like you're wearing a metal promise you can't keep. You brace your shield just in time for the world to remind you that medieval combat isn't balanced, fair, or remotely ergonomic. A sudden gust of wind sweeps across the field, carrying the sharp hiss of something slicing the air. You tilt your head, your visor narrowing your world to a tiny window, and that's when arrows begin whispering past you. Not whistling, whispering. There's an eerie softness to them, a kind of deadly hush, like nature politely informing you that you should have stayed in bed today. Your shield jerks as something thumps into it. The impact rattles your arm straight to the elbow. You gasp, taking an involuntary step back, only to bump into someone behind you. He shoves you forward again with a grunt. "Hold the line," he snaps. Right. The line. The one you're absolutely ruining already. The unsettling part is how fast everything feels. You didn't even see the archers release their volleys. One moment the sky was grey and sleepy, the next it's sprinkled with dark streaks that drop like angry birds with terrible aim, except their aim is actually excellent, and you're simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. A historical fact floats through your mind. Longbowmen could loose up to 12 arrows a minute, with enough draw strength to punch through light armor. That wouldn't matter much if you weren't standing here holding a glorified wooden dinner plate. But there it is. Your shield shudders again as another impact strikes it near the rim. Your hand goes numb for a second, tingling like you've smacked your funny bone on a medieval anvil. You peek over the edge of the shield, bad idea. An arrow zips dangerously close to your visor slit, making you recoil so hard you nearly fall over. That's joke 1. Congratulations, you just invented the medieval version of jump scare gaming. A soldier beside you laughs breathlessly. Keep your head down unless you want a haircut you'll never grow back. His voice wavers, slightly part humor, part terror. He holds a tall kite shield emblazoned with a faded symbol. His posture is tight, but practiced. You try to mimic him, lowering your shield enough to cover most of your torso. Advance! A commander roars from somewhere ahead. The order travels through the line like a wave of reluctant motion. Men begin stepping forward, shields angled, knees bent, eyes fixed. You swallow, and your throat feels dry, like you've been chewing chalk for breakfast. You attempt to move with them. Immediately, your shield tilts at an awkward angle. Your spear gets tangled with the man next to you. You mutter an apology, which comes out muffled and unintelligible through the helmet. He gives you an exhausted side-eye anyway. As your formation creeps forward, the rain of arrows thins, but not because the archers have mercy. No, because their barrage served its purpose, rattling your nerves, disrupting formations, and making you feel like a clumsy extra in your own nightmare. A quirky tidbit pops into your head. Some soldiers decorated the inside of their shields with icons, prayers, or little doodles to give themselves courage. You glance inside yours, nothing but wood grain and mild regret. Arrows crunch underfoot as you walk. Each step is a reminder that this battlefield is already littered with messages you'd rather not read. A horse whinnies somewhere to your left. An archer calls out something unintelligible from behind. You try to tune out the noise and focus on not dying in the next 20 seconds. Then, as if on cue, you hear another ominous sound, one you don't immediately recognize. A kind of thunk, thunk, thunk rhythm, followed by men shifting nervously. You risk a glance toward the enemy line and see their shields rising too. Oh no, you don't even need anyone to explain this part. They're firing back. You brace yourself again. The next volley arcs overhead, a dark swarm blotting out a chunk of morning sky. It's oddly beautiful in a terrifying way, like watching birds migrate, if birds were made of sharpened doom. You crouch instinctively, raising your shield. The impacts are louder this time, more aggressive. A soldier shouts, "Keep advancing. They can't aim if we're too close." You internally disagree but follow anyway. Your legs feel heavy, shaky. Every step feels like stepping into a dare you didn't agree to. Your shield grows heavier by the moment. Your arm trembles as though it's trying to detach itself and flee. Someone screams, not in pain, but in anger, and your group picks up speed. You realize they're about to break into a charge. Oh, fantastic. You're running in armor, with a shield, while arrows still occasionally fall around you. This is fine. Everything is fine. That's joke 2. Medieval cardio was clearly invented by someone who hated legs. As you stumble forward, the spacing tightens. Shields overlap. Spears angle outward. Your shield, however, doesn't quite fit right. You lift it higher, but the top edge blocks half your vision. Lowering it exposes your shoulder. Tilting it shifts the weight onto your already cramping wrist. You can practically hear the shield whisper smugly, "You're doing your best, sweetie." Historians still argue whether shield formations were always perfect textbook walls or more chaotic, improvised clusters depending on morale and terrain. Judging by your crooked shield and awkward stance, you're definitely part of the chaotic option. The distance between armies shrinks. You can see the glint of enemy helmets now, the tension in their shoulders, the twitch of fingers gripping spear shafts. You catch the locked gaze of a soldier across the field, a moment of shared dread, anticipation, and disbelief that either of you signed up for this. Your own breathing grows shallow. Sweat blurs your vision. The helmet traps the heat, fogging everything. Another arrow thuds into the ground, inches from your foot. You yelp and instantly regret it. One of your comrades snorts. "First battle?" he asks. "First minute," you answer. And joke number 3 lands. He laughs hard enough to shake his armor. Just survive the next 10 seconds. After that, it's all the same. You highly doubt that, but you grip your shield, bend your knees, tighten your jaw, and step forward again into the part of the battle where shields stop whispering and start screaming. The first hint that something is wrong isn't the sound, it's the vibration. A deep, bone-level tremor ripples through the earth, rising up your legs and settling in your stomach like a cold stone. At first, you think it's your nerves acting up again. But no, this is different. This feels like the ground itself is preparing to flee. The soldier beside you mutters, "They're coming." His voice is flat, resigned, as though he's announcing that rain is on the way and he forgot to bring a cloak. You strain to see past the edges of your helmet. The enemy line shifts, parts slightly, and then the real problem appears. Horses, huge, powerful, snorting beasts, armor glinting, breath steaming in the cool air. Riders lower long lances, angling them like gigantic, very unfriendly skewers. The formation slowly accelerates. Your heartbeat tries to sync with the thundering hooves, fails, and then gives up entirely, switching to panic mode percussion instead. A historical fact surfaces, unhelpfully. Cavalry charges were designed not just to break lines, but to break morale. The sound alone, this rolling, growing thunder, could send untrained fighters running. You, of course, are extremely untrained, and every instinct you have is screaming to sprint in the opposite direction. You try to steady your breathing, but the air in your helmet feels thick, warm, and entirely unbreathable. Sweat drips from your forehead, stinging your eyes. You blink rapidly, trying to regain focus, but the visor only gives you a narrow glimpse of what's coming. A commander ahead raises his sword and yells, "Hold! Stand firm!" Right, stand firm. Sure, that's definitely your skill set. But around you, the soldiers do something remarkable. They tighten formation. Shields push closer together. Spears tilt forward in a bristling forest, and the line gains cohesion. You feel yourself being nudged into place, part of a larger body. A few men mutter prayers. One even kisses a pendant he pulls from inside his gambeson. A quirky battlefield tidbit comes to mind. Some medieval warriors carried small charms filled with herbs, hair, or bits of bone, believing they granted protection. One soldier next to you clutches a tiny leather pouch stitched with colourful thread. "For luck," he whispers. You nod politely, even though statistically luck abandoned you the moment you woke up here. The cavalry picks up speed. Their banners snap in the wind. The horses lower their heads. The riders lean forward in unison. Everything feels like it's tightening, bracing, sharpening. And then impact begins. Not on you, not yet, but on the far edge of your formation. You hear screams, metal buckling, men colliding, shields splinter, lances crack. The sound is unreal, like trees breaking in a storm, mixed with the frantic chaos of bodies crashing together. Your line lurches. Soldiers stumble backward as the shockwave reaches you. A man to your right loses his footing and nearly takes you down with him. You grab his arm, steadying him purely by accident. "Thanks," he gasps. You nod, though your knees are currently filing urgent complaints. The cavalry wheels around for another pass, hooves churning the ground into mud. You can feel their power, feel the arrogance of momentum, feel the ancient, primal terror that every foot soldier in history must have known, the knowledge that a 1,000-pound animal can turn you into lawn decor with one wrong step. Historians still argue whether infantry could reliably repel cavalry with pure discipline, or whether terrain and luck mattered more. All you know is that when horses start charging again, you suddenly appreciate every pothole you've ever cursed in modern life. The commander shouts, "Brace!" Your line tightens. The riders come in fast, too fast. You lower your shield as instructed, spear angled outward, trying not to imagine how flimsy your stance must look. Your arm trembles under the weight of the shield. Your fingers slip slightly inside your gauntlet. It's like holding a car door against a hurricane. The hooves grow louder, deafening, until the ground quakes with each step. You catch a flash of a horse's eyes, wide, wild, rolling white. Its nostrils flare, hot breath blasts out, fogging the air. The rider aims his lance straight ahead. At the last moment, you squeeze your eyes shut. The impact never comes. Your spear tip strikes something, not a horse, but maybe a rider's shield or armor, and glances off awkwardly. The force sends you stumbling backward. The horse swerves, barely missing you, leaving a gust of wind that smells like sweat and leather. You gasp for air, legs trembling. Someone behind you shouts, "You didn't die. Good job." There's joke one. Apparently survival is now graded on a pass-fail scale. You open your eyes to chaos. Horses spin and rear. Infantry scramble to fill gaps. And shouts echo everywhere. Your shield arm burns. Your legs wobble. Your spear quivers in your grasp like it's afraid too. Suddenly, another horse barrels past, its rider swinging a sword. The blade hits your shield with a violent clang, sending a shock up your arm. You yelp and not gracefully. The soldier next to you shouts, "Stay low, watch their legs, right the legs." Horses are terrifying up top, but vulnerable down low. Except you're pretty sure kneeling now would get you trampled. Hard pass. A rider falls nearby, unhorsed by a spear thrust from a braver soldier than you. The man hits the ground with a thud. The horse bolts, nearly clipping your shoulder. You spin awkwardly, armor grinding, shield scraping the dirt. It's not elegant. In fact, you probably look like a medieval kitchen pot rolling downhill. That's joke two. A horn blasts again from the enemy side. The cavalry begins retreating to regroup, leaving behind churned soil, shouting men, and the heavy stink of sweat. You collapse to one knee, not in defeat, but because your armor weighs approximately the same as your bad life choices. A soldier offers you his hand. On your feet, they'll charge again. You groan. Why? He shrugs. Because that's what they do. There's joke 3. Medieval warfare, brought to you by the Department of Bad Ideas, repeated until someone wins. You force yourself up, breathing hard, shield raised once more. Your heart pounds, your ears ring, your blade feels clumsy in your grip. But the scary part? You've only survived the opening moments of the first charge. And the battlefield hasn't even gotten messy yet. You barely have time to catch your breath before the line surges forward again. Someone shouts, "Close the gaps," and your formation shuffles, compacts, and reshapes itself like an anxious, heavily armored caterpillar. You get nudged from 3 different directions: elbow, shoulder, backplate, until you're squeezed so tightly between soldiers that you can smell the fear, sweat, and questionable breakfasts of your neighbors. This is your first real introduction to medieval formations. Densely packed, claustrophobic, and aggressively lacking in personal space. You grip your spear and adjust your stance, trying to imitate the soldiers around you, but your movements feel stiff and delayed, like you're a lagging character in a historical MMO. Ahead of you, a long line of enemy infantry is already forming. Spears bristle like porcupine quills, shields overlap into a sleeted wooden wall, and helmets glint under the muted sun. Your own group tries to mirror the same shape, one collective, solid block of bodies, weapons, and shaky discipline. A historical fact slips into your mind. Pike and spear formations were the backbone of medieval warfare, capable of halting cavalry and pushing through infantry lines provided everyone held steady and didn't panic. Panic, unfortunately, is your core skill right now. The soldier to your right leans closer. Don't fight. Alone. You push with us. Always with us. You nod. Together. Right. Sounds lovely in theory, terrifying in practice. The ground between the 2 armies narrows. Every step feels heavier. Your shield bumps against the man ahead. Your spear tip wobbles dangerously. Someone adjusts your elbow so you're not aiming at the sky. Point it forward, he mutters. Good advice, honestly. Then a horn blares long, low, vibrating your chest through the armor. Your line breaks into a steady march, spears lower, voices rise, the distance shrinks to nothing. And then the 2 walls collide. The impact is nothing like movies, no graceful one-on-one duels. No elegant twirls, just raw physics and bodies smashing together like a medieval traffic jam with poor braking systems. Your spear hits something solid, maybe a shield, maybe a shoulder, and you're shoved back by the counterforce. A soldier behind you slams into your backplate, pushing you forward again whether you like it or not. Your shield jerks sideways, catching part of a blow meant for someone else. The vibration stings your forearm. You let out an involuntary grunt that sounds like you're trying to lift a couch alone. That's joke 1. Nothing says combat ready, like grunting like a confused tractor. A soldier near you shouts, step, push, step, push. You try to follow the rhythm step with your front foot, thrust lightly, push with your shield, then retreat half a step as the enemy does the same. The whole formation rocks back and forth like a living wave. You're not fighting, you're participating in the world's most terrifying group dance. Your spear gets wedged between 2 shields. You try yanking it free, but it won't budge. Panic spikes, your only weapon is stuck. You tug harder. It still doesn't move. Then, with a sudden jolt, it slips free, launching you backward into the soldier behind you. He swears. You apologize. He swears again. That's joke 2. Ahead, an enemy spear jabs toward your head. You duck instinctively, though the visor blocks half your view. The spear scrapes your helmet with a teeth-rattling screech. You flinch, shield raised, heart pounding loud enough for the whole formation to hear. A soldier to your left shouts, "Watch the low thrusts. They'll go for your legs." You look down just in time to see a spearhead jabbing near your knee. You lift your leg awkwardly, which throws your balance, which causes you to wobble, which ends with you headbutting your own shield. The soldier next to you bursts out laughing a short, surprised bark. "There you go," he says, inventing new techniques. That's joke 3, the patented self-inflicted shield headbutt. The formation surges again. You're pushed forward into the press of enemy shields. You hear metal striking metal, wood splintering, breathless grunts, desperate cries. Someone loses grip of their spear and grabs another from the ground. Another soldier, bleeding from the forehead, still holds his formation like muscle memory is doing the fighting for him. You finally manage a semi-controlled thrust. Your spear pokes into a gap between shields. You don't know if it hits anything meaningful, but the enemy flinches, and that's enough to earn an approving grunt from the soldier beside you. Despite the chaos, there's a strange rhythm to the whole thing. A give and take, a push and pull. You realize the formation isn't just about you surviving, it's about creating one unified pressure point. You're a piece of a human bulldozer, but your modern instincts rebel violently against the packing. Every time someone bumps you, you flinch. Every time you step on an arrow stump, you wobble. Every time the formation surges, your armor lags, throwing off your balance. And yet, you're still standing. Barely, but standing. The lines grind together like two rough stones, slow, abrasive, relentless. No room to swing your weapon, no room to maneuver. Just thrust, block, breathe, and pray the shield in front of you doesn't collapse. A soldier to your right yells over the cacophony. Historians still argue whether these fights lasted minutes or hours. Personally, I think time breaks when this starts. You believe him. Every second stretches. Every breath feels stolen. Every shove feels like the battlefield itself pushing back. Suddenly, somewhere down the line, a gap opens, tiny but dangerous. You hear panicked shouting, "Close the breach, close it." The formation begins to wobble. You feel it, the shift, the slack, the instability. If the line breaks here, the enemy will pour through. The soldier next to you slams his shield against yours. Hold steady, don't fall. You grit your teeth, lower your stance, lift your shield, and brace, just as the pressure intensifies, just as the line begins to buckle, just as you realize this isn't even close to the worst part of the battle. The gap in the line threatens to swallow you whole. But before it widens, a new sound cuts through the chaos. Not the thunder of hooves this time, not the crash of shields, but something softer, eerier, a rising hiss, a distant flutter, a kind of whispering static that crawls along the air. Someone shouts, "Down arrows!" But the warning comes a fraction too late. A fresh volley rains from the sky, not trickles, not scattered shots, a full, unbroken curtain of arrows that turns the air into a swarm of stinging shadows. You hunch instinctively, raising your shield over your head. The man beside you does the same. The formation tightens, ducking into a makeshift turtle shell of overlapping wood and metal. The first impacts hit like hailstones on a tin roof. Thunk, 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 thip. An arrow punches through the rim of your shield, splintering the wood. Another ricochets off your shoulder plate with a metallic ping that vibrates all the way down your spine. You squeeze your eyes shut, heart pounding like a drum in a bad marching band. A historical fact flutters through your mind. Massed arrow volleys weren't always meant to kill. Often they were meant to disrupt formations, sow fear, force soldiers to break rank. Congratulations, you are extremely disrupted right now. The soldier to your right shouts, "Keep your head down unless you like medieval dentistry." That's joke one. You can feel the air shift above you. Every arrow that passes overhead leaves a faint whisper, like tiny angry ghosts who missed their appointment. You risk a glance upward through the slit in your helmet, only to see the blur of feathers and iron raining in all directions. "Just stay low," someone else yells. "They'll empty their quivers soon," but you know that's only partially comforting. Medieval archers could carry dozens of arrows, and longbowmen especially could refill from supply bundles along the rear lines. In other words, you're not getting a break anytime soon. The formation huddles tighter, metal grinds against metal, shields scrape. Someone lets out a yelp as an arrow grazes his gauntlet. You feel the shudder of every impact through the bodies around you. It's like being inside a rattling cage with unseen hands attacking from all angles. Then quiet, a short, brutal quiet, the kind that suggests something worse is coming. You hear a commander roar, "Advance," while they reload. Your formation lifts shields and climbs back to standing posture, but your legs feel like half-melted jelly. You take a shaky step forward, then another, trying not to trip on the litter of broken shafts and embedded arrowheads scattered across the ground. Every step crunches or snaps or slips. You're basically walking through a field of pointy Lego bricks. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Some arrows were purposely barbed so they'd tear more when removed. You look at the ground uneasily, grateful none of today's arrows have your name on them yet. The enemy archers reposition. They're adjusting their stances, tightening formations, reaching for new arrows. You hear their captains calling out distances. The soldier beside you mutters, "They're aiming lower this time." You swallow. Right. Lower means the arrows won't arc. They'll fly straight. Much faster. Much deadlier. Another horn. Another command. Another volley. These don't whisper. They scream. They slice through the air with a vicious twang, the kind of sharp, cutting sound that grabs your nerves and wrings them dry. You duck again, but a soldier in front of you isn't quick enough. An arrow slams into his shield, driving it back into his faceplate with a painful clang. He staggers but stays upright. Two other men help brace him. The soldier to your left laughs breathlessly. Historians still argue whether archers aimed at individuals or just fired blindly into clusters. He jerks his chin toward you. "But I swear they're aiming right at us." Another arrow zips past your helmet, grazing the top so close you feel a faint vibration through the metal. You squeak not proudly. The man next to you snorts. "There it is," he says. The battle yelp. Everyone gets one. That's joke 2. As the volley ends, your commander waves forward. "Move. Close the distance." Right, the only real way to deal with archers is to get close enough that they can't fire effectively. But close enough feels like miles away, and your legs are already trembling from adrenaline, exhaustion, and the weight of armor that clearly resents you. You trudge forward, stepping over shattered arrows. You pass a shield with 3 shafts embedded in it like a grotesque bouquet. You see feathered tips quivering in the mud. Everything feels surreal, like you're walking through a supermarket aisle where every item is trying to stab you. Now that you're nearing the enemy's midfield range, arrows fall less frequently, but they're more dangerous shot at. Flatter trajectories, each with a chance of punching through armor seams. You angle your shield just so, copying the veterans around you. Your shoulder aches from holding it aloft, but lowering it feels like asking for medieval acupuncture. The archers begin to fall back behind their infantry lines, their job done for now. You think you can breathe a little easier, but the soldier beside you shakes his head. "Don't relax. They'll pick us off later. They always do." You sigh. Loudly. He nods sympathetically. "Yep," he says. "That's the correct response. That's joke 3. As you continue forward, you realize something unsettling. You've survived cavalry and 2 arrow volleys, but this was the easy part. The part meant to soften you up, break your focus, rattle your confidence. Ahead of you, the enemy infantry shifts again, shields locking, spears lowering. The real nightmare waits in the crush of close combat, and you're marching straight into it. You push forward, trying to steady your breathing, though the inside of your helmet now feels like someone trapped a humidifier, a panic attack, and a small oven together, and told them to collaborate. The archers have fallen back, but your line hasn't slowed. In fact, the pace quickens, driven by shouted orders and a kind of collective determination that you're still struggling to borrow. Then you see it. Not arrows this time, not cavalry, but something far worse and much bigger. A dark shape lurches into view beyond the enemy infantry. A towering wooden frame creaks ominously, its ropes taut, its sling swinging gently like a giant thinking about how best to ruin your day. A trebuchet. A very active trebuchet. Your stomach sinks. A soldier beside you mutters, "Oh, perfect. Flying boulders. Just what we needed." That's joke 1. And indeed, flying boulders are exactly what you're about to get. A team of enemy engineers works quickly, stuffing the sling with a heavy stone that looks roughly the size and attitude of a small car. The counterweight rises with a groaning moan, building tension inch by inch. Even at this distance, you can feel the anticipatory dread ripple through your formation. A historical fact reaches you through the fog of anxiety. Trebuchets could launch projectiles hundreds of meters with terrifying precision, used to smash walls, pulverize formations, and generally ruin long-term architectural plans. Medieval chroniclers even mention commanders using them to hurl dead animals, and sometimes less pleasant things, into besieged towns. But right now, none of that matters. What matters is that you are standing in the designated, "We hope you enjoy large rock delivery zone." Someone yells, "Spread out," but the order collides immediately with the commander shouting, "Stay in formation." You stand frozen between 2 conflicting instructions, which honestly feels like most of adulthood. The trebuchet fires. You hear it, before you see it. A low, resonant whump that thuds through your chest. Then the arm swings free, the sling snaps upward, and the stone arcs into the air slowly at first, then with terrible momentum. It's airborne. It's spinning. It's getting closer. You try to track it through your visor, which is like trying to watch a meteor through a mailbox slot. Men around you swear loudly. Some duck, some flinch. Some pretend they're not doing either. The boulder lands 50 meters ahead of you. The explosion of dirt, grass, and panic blasts outward in a violent spray. Men are knocked off their feet, not by direct hit, but by the sheer force of the impact. A soldier in front of you stumbles backward, colliding with your shield and making you stagger. More trebuchets creak ominously. You look up. Great. They're firing again. This time, 2 projectiles fly. Not rocks, something else. You squint, trying to identify the shapes. They look like barrels. Barrels wrapped in cloth. The soldier beside you sighs deeply. Firebombs, he mutters. Fantastic. And indeed, when the barrels hit the ground, they burst open, scattering shards of burning pitch across the field. Sparks and flames erupt like angry fireflies. The heat washes over you. Your shield grows warm. The air fills with smoke, thick, acrid, choking. You cough inside your helmet, which helps absolutely no one. A quirky historical tidbit flickers into your mind. Some medieval armies experimented with early incendiaries, pitch, tar, oil-soaked cloth, even primitive mixtures that cling and burn. All highly effective. All absolutely terrible for bedtime relaxation. Your commander waves his sword. Keep moving. And so you do, because turning around would mean being trampled by your own side. As you march past the smoking debris, the ground sticks to your boots. Your armor grows hotter, sweat pooling under every plate. The air tastes burnt and bitter. Men shout orders through the haze. Someone screams for water. Another soldier stomps out a flame on his tunic. But the trebuchets keep firing. A shadow sweeps across you, another projectile flying overhead. This one lands behind your line, sending men sprawling. The recoil rattles through your bones. You feel heat, dust, and the subtle but growing realization that you may have severely overestimated your survivability. Historians still argue whether trebuchets were more effective psychologically or physically. Some say the fear they generated broke morale faster than the stones broke bones. Others point out that a single well-placed shot could end a battle before it truly began. All you know is that each launch feels like a cosmic entity rolling dice with your existence. Your formation shifts sideways, trying to avoid the calculated firing zone. The archers continue withdrawing. Enemy infantry closes in. And through the smoke, you see yet another siege engine, a mangonel, its arm cocked back like a judgmental catapult ready to fling something unpleasant. You groan loudly. The soldier behind you pats your shoulder. Still alive? Barely, you mutter. Good. You're already doing better than most recruits. That's joke 2. Another stone hits nearby, spraying dirt across your visor. You wipe it with your gauntlet, which only smears it. Fantastic. Now you're blind and terrified. Ahead, the trebuchet team prepares another shot, but your line finally crosses into their blind spot too close for accurate aim. The siege fire quiets. Your shoulders relax a fraction. Then the soldier next to you says, "Don't celebrate yet. They bring those things into sieges too." You stop celebrating immediately. He chuckles. That's joke 3. You continue marching, teeth clenched, shield raised, weapon trembling in your grip. Behind you, the trebuchets creak ominously one last time before falling silent. Ahead of you, the enemy infantry waits for you to step into the nightmare of close combat. You almost wish the stones had gotten you instead. Almost. You step past the last smoking crater left by the trebuchets, and for a fleeting second, you think the worst might be over. But then the air changes, grows thick, tense, charged with a kind of dread that even your visor's narrow slit can't hide. Ahead of you, the enemy infantry stops holding formation. They don't brace. They don't prepare to withstand your push. They open, just enough to let something through. At first, you see only fragments, flashes of steel, glints of helmets, a few figures moving faster than the soldiers you've faced so far. They weave between the lines with unnerving fluidity, like wolves slipping between a herd of cattle. Light infantry, skirmishers, people who fight up close, too close. Your stomach drops. Someone beside you mutters, "Oh no." Another soldier sighs and says, "Stay tight. They'll try to break our line." He says it like he's warning you not to drop your shopping bags. The skirmishers rush forward quick, agile, much more terrifying than the lumbering, shield wall infantry you've grown accustomed to. They carry short swords, axes, and long knives, weapons light enough to swing rapidly and sharp enough to ruin your day. You grip your spear tighter, but your hands are sweaty inside the gauntlets. Your shield feels heavy again. Everything feels heavy again. Then the first clash happens. A skirmisher leaps at the man 2 spots to your left, swinging a hatchet that clangs against a shield with enough force to send splinters flying. Your formation shudders. Someone grunts. Someone else yells a warning. You thrust your spear forward almost reflexively, except the soldier in front of you steps back at the same moment, and your spear tip nearly pokes him in the spine. "Watch what you're doing," he snaps. "Sorry, that's not helpful." That's joke 1. But there's no time to apologize properly, because the line ripples again. Close. Combat has begun. Not movie combat. Not the elegant, dance-like duels you've seen 1,000 times. This is tight, filthy, frantic chaos. You watch a skirmisher swing at the soldier ahead of you. The blow slides off a helmet with a ringing tone that makes you flinch. The soldier responds by shoving him with his shield, unbalancing him. You thrust your spear again, this time successfully. The tip jabs into a gap between shields. You feel resistance. You don't know what you hit. You don't want to know. The soldier beside you grunts approvingly. Then something slams into your own shield hard. The impact forces you back a step. A skirmisher is suddenly in front of you, blade flashing toward your shoulder. You squeak again, not proudly, and raise your shield just in time. The blow scrapes across the wood, leaving a gouge. The man lunges again. You thrust your spear awkwardly, hitting his wrist guard. You nearly let go of the weapon. He snarls something you don't understand, probably, "Please hold still so I can stab you." Then the soldier to your right swings his spear sideways, cracking the skirmisher in the ribs. The attacker stumbles backward. Your entire formation surges forward, pushing him away. He disappears into the chaos. You're breathing hard now. Your visor fogs. You try to wipe it, but your gauntlet just squeaks uselessly against the metal. You hear someone shout, "Push! Don't let them inside the line!" You push, even though you feel like a medieval shopping cart with a broken wheel. Another skirmisher darts out from the flank, aiming low. You barely bring your shield down in time. The impact jars your elbow, sending a sharp pain shooting up your arm. You grunt, stumbling. The soldier behind you grabs your shoulder plate. Up. Don't fall. You force yourself upright. Your legs shake violently. A quirky tidbit flutters across your mind. Medieval soldiers, often trained by shoving against posts, trees, or even each other to build the strength needed for close-quarters formation fighting. You desperately wish you had shoved a few more trees in your life. The skirmishers retreat momentarily, just long enough for your line to catch its breath. But then the enemy infantry closes in again, this time engaging directly. Their shields slam against yours, their spears jab, their swords scrape your armor like someone angrily trying to open a stubborn tin can. The noise becomes overwhelming. Metal striking metal, wood splintering, men shouting, your heartbeat pounding in your ears. Historians still argue whether close combat battles were mostly pushing contests or actual exchanges of cutting blows. Right now, it feels like both. And neither, and something worse. You thrust again. Your spear tip glances off a shield. The recoil sends your arm backward. You nearly elbow the man behind you, who mutters something rude but understanding. Another soldier takes a hit to his shield that knocks him sideways. You instinctively shift left to fill the gap, nearly tripping on a discarded weapon buried in the dirt. You stumble but catch yourself. Small victories count. The man beside you shouts, "Keep moving forward, slow and steady." Your brain whispers back, "Steady? In what universe?" Then the pressure ramps up. The enemy pushes harder. Their line tightens. Your formation begins to bow inward. You hear panicked murmurs. The shield wall creaks. A man ahead of you loses balance and falls forward into the enemy. 2 soldiers drag him out before he's overwhelmed. Your commander yells, "Hold! The line holds!" But you're not convinced. Another skirmisher finds a gap and lunges with brutal precision. You jerk your shield to block, but he feints and swings low, hitting your shin plate. The vibration knocks your knee back. You yelp. That's joke 2. Before he can follow up, a spear from your right catches him in the shoulder, pushing him away. This time, you thrust your own spear into the opening not bravely, but desperately. It connects with something solid. The man staggers. Your line pushes forward again. Then, out of nowhere, someone behind you says breathlessly, "You're doing fine. First battle is always like this." You turn your head incredulous. "How many of you survived?" He shrugs. 3, 2.5, if you count the time I fainted. That's joke 3. The lines grind together once more. You feel every shove, every impact, every desperate motion. Close combat is nothing like sparring, nothing like movies, nothing like anything you've ever imagined. It's cramped, clumsy, sweaty, terrifying, and impossibly loud. And yet, somehow you haven't died. Which is good, because the battlefield is about to get even worse. The crush of close combat finally loosens not because things are calming down, but because the ground beneath you decides to declare war on your feet. You take a shaky step backward, trying to reset your stance, and your boot sinks halfway into something wet and uncooperative. Mud. Thick, sucking, ankle-swallowing mud. You yank your foot upward, but the mud holds on like it's trying to claim your boot as a souvenir. You wobble, arms pinwheeling. A soldier beside you grabs your elbow just in time. "Careful," he snaps. "Ground's turning traitor." He's not wrong. The battlefield has become a churned-up disaster. Grass shredded, soil mashed into thick paste by thousands of boots and hooves, rocks loosened, roots exposed. The whole surface is a trap, designed by nature to test your dignity. That's joke 1. Congratulations. You're currently fighting both armies and the ground. You managed to free your foot, but your boot feels 10 pounds heavier with mud. When you step again, your heel skids on something slick. You look down just enough to see the smear of crushed grass mixed with puddled water and darker patches you choose not to think about too hard. Before you can regain full balance, someone shoves against your backplate, your line pressing forward again. You stumble and plant your spear to stay upright. Mud splashes across your greaves. Your visor fogs. Your patience evaporates. A historical fact flickers in your mind. Many battles were decided not by bravery, but by footing. Marshy fields, rain, or freshly tilled soil could turn an army into a slipping, sliding mess. Commanders sometimes even chose muddy terrain on purpose to sabotage cavalry charges or tire out infantry. You glance around. The mud is winning. Worse yet, the terrain isn't just mud. It's riddled with dips, divots, and uneven mounds, each one ready to twist an ankle or send you face first into the dirt. You watch a veteran 2 paces ahead step wrong, his boot sliding sideways. He catches himself, growls, and keeps moving as if nothing happened. You try to imitate him. Instead, you immediately trip over a buried stick or maybe a broken spear shaft. You flail forward and smack into Tumeva, your own shield. The soldier next to you bursts out laughing. "There he goes again," he shouts. "Grace of a baby deer." That's joke 2. Your cheeks burn, but no one seems to care much. Everyone's too busy staying alive, staying upright, and staying ahead of whatever new disaster the day offers. Then the rain starts, because of course it does. Not a gentle drizzle, not a refreshing sprinkle. A full, cold, miserable downpour that turns the battlefield from muddy inconvenience to full aquatic training exercise. Water pelts your visor, streaking down the slits and distorting your vision. You blink hard, but each blink just smears the droplets. Your gauntlet is no help, it only grinds dirt into streaks. Someone groans loudly. "Rain? Now? Really?" Another soldier says, "On the bright side, at least the fires are going out." A third mutters, "Historians still argue whether rain was good luck or bad in battle, but today? Yeah, bad. Your boots squelch, with every step now. Your gambeson absorbs water like a medieval sponge, adding even more weight to your already impossible ensemble. Your shield grows slippery. You try to readjust your grip, but your fingers are pruned and numb. Every motion feels clumsy. Then, just to spice things up, the mud decides to organize itself into levels. You take a step solid ground, another soft ground. Third, your entire right leg sinks to the knee. You gasp, arms flailing, shield dropping dangerously low. The soldier behind you grabs your collar and yanks you free. Mud splashes everywhere. You stumble, regain balance, and immediately wish you hadn't. Your boot is gone. Still in the mud, still sticking straight up behind you like a tiny monument to your suffering. You freeze. The soldier behind you bursts into hysterical laughter. "That's it," he wheezes. "We'll bury it later with full honors." That's joke 3. You plunge your foot back into the mud to retrieve the boot, pulling it free with a disgusting suction sound. You jam your foot inside without checking for, well, anything. It's wet. It's cold. It's awful. You don't care. Lightning flashes in the distance, illuminating the uneven battlefield. The rain thickens. The mud deepens. The ground becomes not just an enemy but the main one. Archers can aim. Horses can trample. Infantry can push. But mud doesn't care what you do. It pulls at you relentlessly. Slows every step. Steals your footing. Battles your balance. Messes with your morale. It's also hiding obstacles, fallen shields, broken weapons, stones, discarded helmets. Each step becomes a gamble. You nearly trip over a full shield buried at an angle. Someone to your left falls outright, sliding on his back through a puddle like a disgruntled otter. You help him up. He thanks you with a curse. The fight ahead continues, but now movements are sloppy, hesitant. Soldiers slip as they thrust. Blades skid off wet armor. Shields slide out of calm hands. The battlefield becomes a chaotic symphony of slipping, splashing, and swearing. And, somewhere in all this, you realize something unsettling. You're starting to understand why medieval chroniclers wrote about mud as if it were a living force. Because right now, it feels like the mud wants to win this battle more than the enemy. And it's doing a disturbingly good job. The rain slackens, but only just enough for sound to reclaim the air, and when it does, you finally understand why veterans say the battlefield isn't truly terrifying because of what you see, but because of what you hear. You stand there in the muck, breath heavy, visor fogged, trying to steady your trembling legs, when a new wave of noise rolls over you like a crashing tide. It starts with the clatter of armor, metal scraping metal, as soldiers adjust, collide, or shift positions. Then comes the groaning of wet leather straps, the slosh of mud-sucked boots, the pounding footsteps of both retreat and advance. Those are just the surface-level sounds. The deeper layer is worse, much worse. Somewhere nearby, a horn blasts a long, wavering note that feels less like a command and more like an anxiety attack given audio form. Drums answer in the distance, creating a slow, heavy rhythm that thumps through your chest like someone else has commandeered your heartbeat. Another horn responds with a higher, sharper cry. Your world becomes a messy symphony of overlapping signals, your side calling for order, the enemy shouting for blood, both sides shouting the same thing. Hold the line. The soldier beside you mutters. This is the part that gets inside your head. You tilt your helmet slightly. Which part? He gestures vaguely at everything. All of it. A historical fact slips into your mind. Chroniclers described medieval battle soundscapes as deafening chaos, a mix of instruments, war cries, clashing metal, and the constant rumble of marching masses. Soldiers sometimes stuffed wool in their helmets to soften the noise. You, tragically, did not get the wool upgrade. The next sound slams into you without warning, a thunderous metallic crash, as if two enormous shields have collided at full force. You flinch so hard you nearly drop your spear. A soldier 2 paces away yells at an opponent, their voices echoing violently inside your helmet. You feel the vibrations of combat travel through the ground, up your boots, through your knees, into your chest. Then comes another layer of sound, one you were hoping to avoid, screaming. Not constant, not everywhere, but sharp stabs of it here and there. A man shouting orders, another shouting warnings, someone yelling in pain, someone else yelling in anger. Voices layer over one another until the battlefield sounds like an argument between thunderstorms. That's normal, the soldier on your left says, breathing heavily. You swallow. Normal? He nods. If it goes quiet, that's when you panic. That's joke 1. You try to focus on breathing, but every inhale brings the smell of damp earth, wet wool, old sweat, and the metallic tang of weapon strikes. Even the sounds smell bad now. A sudden roar explodes to your right, several men bellowing in unison as they shove forward in a coordinated push. Shields slam, spears clack. Someone trips, someone curses, someone else decides this is the perfect time to shout something that sounds like a mix between encouragement and a personal meltdown. Above the clamor, you hear a rhythmic pounding, deep, steady, terrifyingly familiar. More horses, cavalry regrouping. Their hooves drum on the soft earth, growing louder with each beat. You can't see them, but you hear them, hooves thundering, armor clanking, riders yelling. It's like the sound is coming directly for your spine. You grip your spear harder, pulse accelerating. A soldier behind you whispers, "Don't look. You won't see them until they're on us." You decide not to look. It feels like self-care. To your left, someone begins singing a rough, off-key chant meant to rally courage. Others join in, their voices uneven but determined. It's not pretty. It's not even close to in tune, but it fills the air with something that's not raw fear. A quirky tidbit enters your thoughts. Some medieval units used chants or rhythmized shouts to maintain formation and morale. Some sang prayers, others screamed insults. A few even shouted their own names just so someone would remember them. The soldier beside you grins weakly. "We're doing the embarrassed humming version. Classic." That's joke 2. Suddenly, a massive boom shakes the field. You flinch violently. A mangonel shot lands somewhere behind your line. Dirt rains onto your helmet with a hollow patter. You duck instinctively, too late for safety, too early for calm. Someone yells, "Ignore it," eyes forward. You do not ignore it, but you lift your head anyway. A new layer of noise joins the battlefield. The clinking of loose armor plates when soldiers tremble. The scraping of weapons pulled free of shields. The wet smack of boots slogging in mud. The groaning of wounded men trying to move. The unmistakable echo of hammer against shield as someone tries to dislodge a spearhead stuck in the planking. The entire world feels like it's vibrating. You feel like you're vibrating. Then you hear something unexpected, a laugh. A real one. Exhausted, wheezing, unhinged. A soldier 2 rows ahead shakes his head and shouts. Historians still argue whether this noise made men braver or stupider, but I'm leaning towards stupider. A few soldiers laugh. You laugh too, partly from nerves, partly because he's right. That's joke 3. The soundscape around you grows even more chaotic as the enemy line pushes forward again. You hear blades clashing, shields cracking, boots skidding. Someone shouts your name. No, wait, not your name. Just a general, "Hey," that your panicked brain assigns to you. The sound rises and rises until your ears ring. Your vision narrows, your muscles tighten, and then, just as the next wave of combat surges toward you, you realize something unsettling. You're starting to understand the battlefield's language. Not the words, not the commands, but the rhythm, the warning, hum before impact, the pitch of a spear hitting wood, the timbre of footsteps behind you versus in front, the rumble of approaching weight. You're not good at it. You're not comfortable with it. But you're learning, because you have no choice. And the battlefield? It's about to teach you another lesson, the one where everything gets louder. The rhythm of the battlefield thrums beneath your boots as your line regains shape. But before you have time to savor the tiny victory of not falling over for a whole 15 seconds, another layer of chaos slides into place, one that feels less like direct danger and more like being shoved into someone else's group, project, commanders. They appear suddenly, men on horseback, men on foot, men with plumes on their helmets, men with absolutely no plumes but far louder voices. They shout orders, wave flags, jab at the air with swords, and generally behave like medieval traffic cops during the world's worst rush hour. One commander rides past your formation, bellowing, "Left flank, advance." Another, just 5 meters away, screams, "Left flank, hold." You blink. One of those is definitely wrong. The soldier beside you mutters, "This again." "Again?" you ask. He nods. "Every battle. They contradict each other more than my parents." That's joke 1. And yes, nothing prepares you for the moment you realize medieval battles weren't controlled by one omniscient tactician, but by a collection of men with partial information, questionable visibility, and wildly different temperaments. One commander is calm, measured, issuing instructions like a chess grandmaster. Another is red-faced, sweating, and shouting like someone who misplaced his horse and is too proud to admit it. A historical fact presses into your mind. Battlefield communication relied heavily on horns, flags, runners, and raw shouting, and between smoke, weather, and panic, signals often got lost or misread. Some battles were won not by strength, but by who misunderstood fewer commands, which does not bode well for you. A horn to your right blasts a short, sharp pattern. The men around you adjust formation accordingly, closing ranks, shields up, spears forward. You try to mimic them, but a second commander blows another horn pattern behind you, and suddenly, half the soldiers shift the opposite direction. You turn in confusion. Which one do we follow? A soldier shrugs. Whichever one is louder. That's joke 2. The ground quakes again as your right flank pushes forward while your left hesitates. Your formation begins to angle weirdly, like a badly drawn triangle. You hear the commander with the plume shouting, "Move! Move!" like a medieval gym instructor. Meanwhile, the plumeless commander screams something entirely contradictory. 2 men near you argue over which instruction is correct. Plume guy outranks no plume guy. No plume guy has more scars. Follow scars. You, having neither a plume nor scars, simply grip your spear and try to avoid becoming collateral damage in a hierarchy argument. Then the real problem arrives. A mounted officer barrels into view, horse panting, eyes wild. The officer points toward the rising hill to your left. The enemy is flanking. Redeploy now. Another commander, equally frantic, shouts from behind you, "Ignore him. They're not flanking, they're retreating." You stare at the horizon through your visor slit. Are they flanking? Are they retreating? Are they tap dancing? You can't tell. The soldier to your left mutters. Historians still argue whether half the commands given during battles were based on accurate information or pure panic. You nod vigorously. That sounds extremely plausible. Suddenly a runner appears, a young boy, maybe 15, gasping for breath. He skids to a halt before your commander and shouts, "Orders from the captain." He hands over a wooden token with symbols carved into it, a portable, medieval memo. Your commander squints at it, rotates it, squints harder, then barks, "Right form up, advance 10 paces." The soldiers obey instantly. Then another runner sprints in from the opposite direction, nearly colliding with the first. "Counter order! Hold position!" Captain says, "Do not advance." Your commander closes his eyes for a long, tortured moment. Then he mutters, "Tell the captain to stop sending contradictory orders every 30 seconds. The runner gulps. "Sir," he says, "you're the one who keeps sending contradictory responses." You pretend you didn't hear that. That's joke 3. Next thing you know, your commander turns his horse sharply and shouts, "Forward!" The men surge. Then he spots something in the distance. Smoke? Movement? A weirdly aggressive goose? And immediately yells, "Hold! Hold!" Momentum halts. Half your line slams into the other half. You stagger and smack into your shield. Your ribs protest. Loudly. Someone behind. You sighs. This is why formations fail. But chaos isn't just horizontal, it's vertical. A flag bearer runs through your ranks, holding a banner marked with bright red stripes. A second flag bearer waves a yellow banner that probably means something important. A third flag bearer waves. No flag. Just a stick. He looks confused. You feel emotionally connected to him. Trumpeters add to the chaos. One blows a long note, another blows a short series, and a third just sounds like he's practicing scales. "This is deliberate," a soldier beside you says. "What is?" "The confusion. Commanders think it boosts morale." "Does it?" "No." "Fair point." Just then, a commander rides past, shouting, "Steady! Their center is weakening." Another commander, riding in from the opposite direction, yells, "Fall back! Their center is reinforced." You're officially taking orders from the medieval equivalent of 2 GPS systems arguing. Your formation wobbles again, adjusting, readjusting, hesitating, pushing. Every second feels like an eternity of doubt. The enemy seems equally confused on their side. Commanders shout contradictory orders too. Flags twitch in different directions. Runners sprint back and forth like frantic medieval interns. You realize that this isn't incompetence, it's the nature of the battlefield. No one sees the whole picture. Everyone is reacting to fragments. Leaders reevaluate constantly, shifting strategies with every new rumor, scream, or plume sighting. It's improvisational disaster management, and you're stuck in the middle of it, armor chafing, shield heavy, spear trembling, visor fogging, legs aching, brain trying desperately to decode instructions that contradict each other every 20 seconds. One commander raises his sword and shouts, "Form the wall." You tighten your shield, the line hardens. Another voice immediately screams, "Break the wall! Charge!" You nearly throw your spear in. Frustration. Then, your commander reins his horse, lifts his sword, and says with a calm gravitas that suggests he's made his final decision, "Listen only to me." You brace yourself, he points forward. And, with total confidence, he shouts, "Wait a moment, I need to confirm something." Perfect. In the end, you move not because someone tells you to, but because the enemy charges again, and your instincts scream louder than any commander ever could, and you realize this truth. On a medieval battlefield, leaders may give orders, but chaos gives the real commands. The enemy charge hits the far edge of your formation first, a sudden, violent crash that rolls through the line like a shockwave. Shields slam, spears clatter, men grunt, curse, cry out. You feel the pressure long before the enemy even reaches you, like a crowd surge at a concert where everyone forgot personal space is a thing. And then, as if the universe decides you haven't been startled enough today, someone behind you screams a word that carries more dread than any order, horn, or curse. Retreat. The word hangs in the air, raw, sharp, electric. Your entire formation stiffens. A few men turn their heads. Someone on your right whispers, "No, not now, not yet." But one man panicking is contagious, and soon more voices rise. Fall back, back, back. They're breaking through. Your heart slams against your ribs. You spin your head, trying to see who's retreating, who's holding, what your commander is doing, but your visor gives you nothing but the blurry chaos ahead. A historical fact worms its way into your thoughts. Medieval retreats were among the most dangerous moments of battle. Formations break, soldiers trip, lines collapse, enemies pounce. What starts as an orderly fallback can turn into a stampede or a massacre. And right now, your line is teetering. The pressure from the enemy's charge intensifies. Soldiers ahead of you get shoved back. You get pushed with them. You stumble, shield jarring against your forearm. A man bumps your shoulder so hard your helmet rings. "Hold the line!" a commander bellows. "No retreat! Hold!" But his voice is drowned by the spreading panic. Someone to your left bolts first, breaking rank and sprinting across the mud. Another follows, then three more. The formation shudders, leaving a gap large enough for the enemy to exploit. "Oh no," the soldier beside you mutters. "Not again." You want to ask again, but you can't, because at that exact second, the gap becomes a wound. Enemy soldiers surge through it like water through a broken dam. Shields smash, spears thrust. A man in front of you cries out and falls forward, tripping the soldier behind him. Another man drops his weapon and tries to run. Someone screams, "I can't see, move!" The battle dissolves into raw chaos. Your shield arm trembles. Your boots slip. You try to brace, but the ground beneath you is a traitor, still mud-soaked, uneven, and now covered in retreating footsteps. A soldier behind you grabs your backplate. "Don't run, you'll die if you run." But everyone's running. You shout back. He shakes his head, pulling you upright. "Exactly. That's why you shouldn't. That's joke one." He pushes you sideways instead, forcing you toward a tighter cluster where the formation still holds. You stumble into place, breath ragged. The line reforms around you, shields locking, bodies pressing close. But another surge of retreaters crashes into your right flank, men shoving, stumbling, trying to flee. One barrels into you, knocking your shield sideways. You spin awkwardly, almost losing your spear. You yell, "Watch it!" He yells, "Move!" The soldier beside you yells, "Stop yelling!" That's joke two. Your commander gallops past, roaring, "Stand! Reform! On me! On me!" He points his sword and signals a fallback maneuver, controlled, slow, step by step. Runners echo the command along the line. Step back by ranks. One pace only. You step back with the group, just one pace. The enemy pushes forward. You absorb the impact. Then another pace. The retreat becomes rhythmic. Back brace, back brace. But the men panicking on your flanks ruin the rhythm. They rush, they shove, they trip. One man tries to sprint between lines, slips in the mud, and takes down two others with him. Your left flank buckles. The enemy pushes harder. You feel the pressure rise like a wave preparing to break. Suddenly someone shouts, "Turn around! Run!" This is the worst sentence you've heard all day. Your commander spins his horse, furious. "Who said that? Hold your ground!" But the damage is done. The ripples spread. Another soldier breaks. Another, then five more. Your line begins to disintegrate. You're shoved backward, shield up, vision narrowed, trying not to fall. Mud splashes, boots slip, armor scrapes, shouts echo everywhere. The man behind you yells, "Don't turn your back! Sidestep! Sidestep!" You obey, shifting sideways rather than turning. It feels unnatural, but it saves your life. An enemy spear whips past your ribs, missing only because you didn't give them a full target. You stumble back another step, then another. Your breathing is ragged, fast, fogging your visor until everything becomes shapes and shadows. A quirky tidbit flickers in your mind. Many medieval armies trained soldiers to never turn their backs. Running exposed their shoulder joints, prime targets for arrows, spears, and opportunistic enemies. Soldiers who ran often didn't make it far. You cling to that knowledge like a life raft. Your group finally forms a smaller defensive cluster. Shield wall tight, spears angled outward, panting, desperate, still alive. The enemy slows, wary of the sudden dense formation. You get a moment, just a moment to breathe. A soldier to your right laughs breathlessly. Historians still argue whether most retreats were tactical or accidental. Today, I'm voting accidental. That's joke 3. Your legs tremble. Your arm shakes. Your shield weighs a ton. Every instinct you have is screaming to run, to flee, to get somewhere, anywhere that isn't here. But you see it now. You understand. The battlefield isn't just about strength or steel. It's about discipline in chaos. Courage when courage feels impossible. Staying when staying feels foolish. Backing away only when backing away won't kill you. And right now, you're still in the worst possible place alive, exhausted, surrounded, and just beginning to understand how bad this retreat could get. Your breathing slowly steadies as your smaller cluster regains a fragile rhythm, shields tight, spears outward, footing cautious. But the enemy finally pauses, regrouping just beyond striking distance. A lull ripples across the field, not peaceful, but tense like the world holding its breath. You think maybe, just maybe, this moment is your chance to recover. It isn't. A horn blares not from the enemy, but from your rear. The sound is long, low, and miserable. The kind of horn that tells you your day is about to get significantly worse. Your commander shouts over the chaos. "Fall back to the keep! We're entering siege formation." Siege. Formation. 2 words that make every soldier groan. The man beside you mutters, "Perfect. Infantry in a siege. This is where the real misery starts." That's joke 1. A siege, you soon learn, isn't a moment. It's a condition. A slow, grinding, soul-sapping transition from open-field chaos to claustrophobic endurance. And you're about to experience the whole miserable spectrum. Your battered cluster begins its retreat toward the fortress behind you, a squat stone keep perched on a low hill, its walls already scarred from earlier bombardments. The retreat is brutal but controlled, step by step, your back angled toward the enemy, but your shield still guarding your front. As you fall back, the world narrows into a dizzying pattern. Step, brace, step, brace, mud, slip, recover, breathe. Behind you, soldiers funnel through the narrow gatehouse like a river forced through a straw. You join the flow, pressed between bodies, helmets, and the stench of wet wool. The enemy, wisely or stubbornly, chooses not to pursue too hard siege tactics, rarely reward rash charges. Inside the walls, chaos becomes congestion. Men shout orders. Others run with bundles of arrows, jugs of water, sacks of grain. Someone drags a wounded soldier past you. Another fetches spare shields for the damaged front ranks. You barely get 2 steps inside when someone shoves a bucket into your hands. "Water the boards," he snaps. You stare. "The boards?" He jabs toward the wooden walkway along the inner wall. "Yes, wet them. Or when the firepots hit, we all roast." Delightful. You jog awkwardly along the wall, sloshing water everywhere, trying not to slip on the muddy stone. As you work, you can't help noticing how cramped the keep feels, narrow walkways, steep stairs, towers that smell like old straw and desperation. A historical fact bubbles up. Most medieval sieges weren't glorious, action-packed standoffs. They were slow, miserable exercises in starvation, disease, psychological warfare, and hoping the engineers on your side were smarter than the engineers on theirs. You pour water on the planks, which absorbs immediately. More soldiers join you, passing buckets in a sloppy, fast-paced chain. Behind you, someone coughs violently. Another soldier mutters, "The real enemy in a siege isn't swords. It's dysentery." Comforting. Before long, the first barrage hits. A distant whump echoes across the valley, the same sound you heard earlier from trebuchets, now aimed directly at your fortified home. You brace instinctively. A stone slams into the outer wall with a teeth-rattling crunch. Dust sprays into your face. The walkway trembles beneath your boots. You grip the railing hard enough to dent it with your gauntlet. Someone shouts, "Patch team! Go!" A group of soldiers rushes to reinforce a cracked segment of stone with wooden braces. You can only watch, hoping their work holds. The next projectile isn't a stone. It's a pot. A pot that explodes on the outer courtyard with a fiery splorch, sending burning pitch flying across the ground. Flames roar upward, licking at the wall. Smoke curls in through the battlements. "Buckets!" Someone screams. Men rush to douse the fire. You join them, splashing water onto the spreading flames. That's when you smell something unpleasant. Very unpleasant. You turn your head and see a dark object flying overhead. You can't quite identify it until it bursts on impact and sends a wave of stench rolling across the courtyard. The soldier beside you gags. Great. They're firing diseased carcasses now. Classic. That's joke 2, and also a quirky historical tidbit. Medieval armies really did launch dead animals, infected corpses, and waste over walls to cause sickness and lower morale. You inhale shallowly, praying your helmet filters something. It filters absolutely nothing. But siege life isn't all bombardment. It's also monotony. Hours of waiting, watching, dreading. You stand along the wall as archers take positions, their bows ready. Some talk quietly, others sharpen blades. A few sit with blank expressions, saving their energy for the night watches. As the rain slows, the courtyard turns into a swamp of mud, ash, and the occasional flaming arrow embedded in the ground. You help, reset the defenses, moving spare shields along the parapets, carrying stones for dropping, adjusting barricades. You learn quickly that a siege is a test of patience as much as strength. One veteran leans beside you, staring over the battlements. You know what the worst part is? What? The boredom, lad. Eventually you start wanting them to attack, just so you have something to do. You blink. You're joking. He shakes his head. Nope, boredom is the real killer. That's joke 3. Night falls. Cold creeps through your armor. Torches flicker along the walls. The enemy camps below, their fires glowing like a constellation of hostile stars. Drums beat occasionally slow, unsettling, purely psychological. You watch them, they watch you. And you realize, siege life isn't measured by minutes or hours. It's measured by how long your nerves can withstand the waiting. You gulp, shivering beneath your soaked gambeson. Because tomorrow, the real siege begins. The night passes in a blur of shivers and half-dreams, your body trapped in armor that feels colder than the stones beneath your feet. Dawn creeps over the walls in a muted grey wash, and as the courtyard stirs awake, you quickly learn something dreadful. The enemy outside is not your greatest threat anymore. It's the medieval medical system inside the walls. You don't even make it 5 steps from your sleeping corner, wedged between a barrel of questionable water and a crate that smells like turnips before someone grabs your arm. "You," a man says, pointing. "We need hands in the infirmary." You try to protest. "I'm not hurt." He shakes his head. "Not for you. For the others." You swallow. Hard. The makeshift infirmary is a tent wedged against the inner wall, its fabric sagging under rain and soot. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of herbs, sweat, old wounds, and something you decide not to identify. A man coughs violently in the corner. Another moans, softly as someone stitches up a gash with thread that looks suspiciously like it was repurposed from a tent flap. A historical fact floats up. Medieval medicine relied heavily on humours, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Diagnosis? Simple. You had too much or too little of one. Treatment? Even simpler. Remove some, add some, or make you vomit it out. The doctor, a wiry man in a stained robe, waves you over. "Hold him still," he says. "Who?" you ask. He points to a soldier lying on a wooden plank, clenching his jaw in agony. Before you can ask what to do, the doctor reveals a metal tool that looks like garden shears designed by someone with unresolved anger issues. "What's that for?" you whisper. He grins. "Bloodletting. Clears the humours." Your soul leaves your body briefly. That's joke 1. You help hold the poor soldier as the doctor makes a small incision and fills a clay bowl with blood, nodding approvingly at the colour. "A good sign," he says. "You're not convinced?" Nearby, Another patient yells, as an assistant pours boiling water over a wound. To cleanse it, the assistant says while the man screams into a rolled-up cloth. You watch in horror as two men treat a leg wound using a paste made of honey, mouldy bread, and what looks like crushed garlic. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Garlic was genuinely used for its antimicrobial properties in some medieval remedies, and honey can help prevent infection. But the mouldy bread? That's either proto-penicillin genius or a biohazard. You pass by another patient whose arm is wrapped in cloth soaked with wine. A teenage assistant fans him with a scrap of parchment, muttering, "Don't worry, we keep the leeches warm." You do a full-body shiver. Then, just when you think you've seen the worst of medieval medicine, your gaze lands on a surgeon preparing a cauterizing iron. He heats it in the fire until it glows red. He turns toward a wounded soldier. He says cheerfully, "Tell me when you're ready." The soldier screams, "I'm not ready." Too late. The hiss of hot iron against flesh fills the tent. The smell makes your eyes water. You step back instinctively straight into the doctor, who hands you a bowl of herbs. "Crush these," he says. "What are they for?" He shrugs. "Everything." That's joke 2. As you grind the herbs with a stone pestle, a soldier limps in with a swollen ankle. The doctor glances at it, prods it twice, and nods sagely. "Too much cold humor," he declares. "What's the treatment?" the soldier asks. The doctor gestures toward you. "Hot mustard poultice." You blink. "I don't have mustard." He stares at you. "Then fetch some." You wander out of the tent in a daze, still clutching the herb bowl. The courtyard looks almost peaceful compared to the horrors inside. Soldiers sharpen arrows, others stack stones along the parapets. A few sit quietly beside fires, warming their hands, and dopsa, pretending nothing smells like burned despair. One veteran lounging by a crate notices your expression. "First time in the infirmary?" You nod slowly. He chuckles. "You'll get used to it, or you won't. Either way, by next week, you won't fear the enemy half as much as those doctors." That's joke 3. He leans back, staring up at the sky. Historians still argue whether medieval medicine helped more people or harmed more people, but during a siege? He shrugs. "It's whatever keeps you alive one more day." You absorb his words, feeling the weight of every groan, every cry, every cauterized wound echo behind you. A shout rings out from the walls. "Enemy movement." You stiffen. The horn blares again. The siege isn't giving anyone time to rest, not even the wounded. You hand off the herb bowl to the nearest assistant and hurry toward the battlements. Your legs ache, your mind races, and your stomach twists. The battlefield may be brutal, but the infirmary is something else entirely. An intimate reminder of just how fragile you really are. And as you take your place on the wall, gripping your spear with shaky hands, one truth settles into your chest. Out here, survival isn't just about skill or strength. It's about enduring pain, cold, fear, and medical treatments you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. And you've only endured your first day. You drag yourself up the narrow stone stairs to the battlements, legs aching, armor chafing, your mind still traumatized by the smell of burned flesh lingering in the infirmary air. But before your boots even reach the top step, another enemy reveals itself, one that doesn't wield swords or siege engines, but still aims to dismantle your will piece by piece. The weather. You emerge onto the wall and are immediately slapped across the face by a gust of freezing wind. It whistles through the gaps in your armor, slicing into the damp fabric of your gambeson and settling into your bones with combison. Icy malice. "Welcome to the wall," a soldier says beside you, teeth chattering. "The weather's our third army today." That's joke 1. You take your position, leaning your elbows on the parapet, trying to stop your fingers from stiffening. Beyond the walls, the enemy camp stirs slowly. Fires sputter, tents flap in the wind, shadows move like restless ghosts. But your immediate problem is the cold, the deep, aching, medieval cold. A historical fact drifts up. Soldiers often spent battles and sieges not just fighting but enduring whatever the sky threw at them. Scorching heat, freezing wind, biting rain, thick fog, and snow that turned battlefields into white, slippery death traps. Right now, the sky seems determined to demonstrate all of these in rapid succession. Minutes pass. Your fingers prickle painfully inside your gauntlets. You try to flex them, but they feel like carved wood. The wind bites harder. Your visor fogs. You lift it slightly to breathe immediately, regretting the icy blast that rushes in. Your nose goes numb. A soldier to your right mutters, "If the enemy doesn't kill us, hypothermia will." You nod, quietly, fearfully. But the weather isn't done. Clouds roll in, dark, heavy, swollen, and release a sudden torrential downpour. The rain falls in sheets, soaking through your gambeson almost instantly. The padded layers cling to your skin like cold, heavy bandages. Water drips down your back, down your legs, into your boots. Your boots. Your poor, already miserable boots. They fill with water so quickly, you feel like you're walking in two personal aquariums. Every shift of your weight triggers a squelch that embarrasses you, even though every soldier around you is squelching too. You shiver so hard your armor rattles. Then, just my luck, the soldier next to you laughs. At least it's not hail today. You stare. Hail? Oh yeah, he says cheerfully. Yesterday we had hail the size of walnuts. You blink. Did it hurt? He gives you a long, slow look. We're in metal helmets. Right. That's a yes. That's joke 2. The rain turns the courtyard into a swamp. Soldiers rush against the walls with sandbags to try to stop flooding. One man slips, falls into a puddle, and throws his helmet off in frustration. Meanwhile, you remain on the wall because your commander told you to stay put until further notice, which is medieval for the next miserable eternity. Then the weather changes again. Within an hour, the clouds break, the rain stops, the wind shifts. And now the sun beams directly onto your armor, warming it at first, then heating it, then cooking it. Your gambeson, still soaked, traps the warmth, turning you into a slow-cooked stew with legs. You groan, lifting your visor again. Heat smacks your face like a sweaty slap. This is somehow worse than the cold. Your helmet bakes. Your armor radiates warmth. Your shoulders ache. Your back feels like a past sauna made by someone who hates relaxation. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Medieval chroniclers wrote often about soldiers fainting from heat inside their armor, especially in summer campaigns. Some accounts mention knights literally collapsing mid-charge from overheating alone. You wipe sweat from your neck, only to have it replaced instantly. The soldier beside you pants. If I faint, make sure I fall backward, not forward. Why backward? So I don't land on the spikes they put down by the moat. You sigh. He adds, also, I don't want the enemy to loot my pockets. That's joke 3. As the sun climbs higher, the air grows thick and suffocating. Even the wind disappears, probably to laugh somewhere else. You try shifting your stance, but the heat sticks to you like glue. Men on the wall pant like dogs, shaking their hands to cool their gauntlets. You finally have a moment to sit, back against a stone crenellation. The stone is warm, almost soothing compared to your metal armor. You close your eyes. A voice beside you whispers, "Don't sleep. You'll dehydrate." Another voice behind you adds, "Don't drink too fast. You'll vomit." A third voice from across the parapet says, "Don't vomit. It attracts flies." You stare ahead, wondering how humanity survived the medieval period at all. By late afternoon, the weather swings again. The wind returns not cold this time, but gusty, disorderly, kicking dust across the wall, whipping your cape, and making your helmet whistle in a way that absolutely does not inspire fear in the enemy. You feel ridiculous. The soldier beside you sighs. "Weather's got mood swings worse than my ex." You nod solemnly. Historians still argue whether commanders considered weather a tactical element or just a miserable nuisance. Some battles turned solely on who handled the elements better. Your army? It seems to be losing to the sky decisively. You stand again, gripping your spear as evening winds howl across the keep. The temperature drops. The mud begins to stiffen. Your gambeson clings coldly to your limbs. You are now simultaneously damp, chilled, overheated, and exhausted, a full medieval weather sampler. And through it all, the enemy camp waits. Torches flare across the field, shadows dance, drums thump. The siege settles back into its long, miserable rhythm, and you shiver beneath your armor, realizing something important. Steel and strength matter, courage matters, skill matters. But on a medieval battlefield, sometimes the weather decides who survives long before the enemy ever gets the chance. Night settles over the keep again, but this time you're not shivering from cold or sweating under a sun-baked helmet. No, the new threat is alive, skittering, snorting, and boldly indifferent to your personal space. Creatures. Every siege, Every battlefield, every cramped military camp attracts them beasts, pests, scavengers, and opportunists. And tonight, you meet them all. It begins with a faint scratching near your boot. You glance down, ready for yet another chunk of falling debris, and instead see a pair of tiny black eyes staring up at you with an expression that can only be described as "pay your rent." A rat. A large, well-fed, morally fearless rat. It squeaks, sniffs your boot, and scampers under a crate like it owns the place. You jolt backward so hard you almost drop your spear. The soldier next to you chuckles. "Ah, the quartermaster." "That's the quartermaster?" He nods sagely. He collects taxes in crumbs and panic. That's joke one. Unfortunately, that single rat is merely the opening act, because within minutes you see dozens tails flicking, whiskers twitching, darting through mud and debris with the confidence of creatures who know they will absolutely outlive you. Rats love sieges. Packed food supplies? Check. Dead bodies? Check. Waste everywhere? Check. A fully catered rat vacation. A historical fact slithers uncomfortably into your mind. Some chroniclers wrote that during prolonged sieges, rats would grow so bold they'd steal bread from sleeping soldiers, and sometimes gnaw on more than bread. You step a little farther from the wall. As if summoned by your unease, the next creature arrives. A dog, big, shaggy, muddy, ears torn, tail wagging, as if it had no idea its life choices have led it into a war zone. It trots up and sits beside you, stares, waits. You blink. Do. "You want something?" The dog barks once. Loudly. Aggressively. The soldier on your left throws it a piece of stale bread. The dog swallows it in one bite, snorts happily, and plops down at your feet like it's adopted you. "Congratulations," the soldier says. "You belong to him now." That's joke two. The dog is harmless enough friendly. Even but the same cannot be said for the keep's resident rooster, which struts boldly along the parapet like it has been appointed General of Dawn. It glares at you, crows sharply, doesn't stop staring. "Don't challenge him," someone warns quietly. "He wins every fight." You nod vigorously. But the animals aren't the only problem. The insects arrive next. Flies swarm around torches. Mosquitoes hover near any exposed skin. Fleas, well, they don't hover. They settle. Deeply, affectionately, especially in damp gambeson padding. You feel an itch on your neck, then another on your wrist, then a mysterious third one in a place that armor should protect but clearly does not. A soldier scratches furiously beside you. "Don't worry," he says. "You get used to it after a week." That's a lie. You know it's a lie. He knows it's a lie. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Fleas and lice were so common among medieval soldiers that they sometimes gave them names. One chronicler even wrote poetry about them. This feels like the medieval version of Stockholm Syndrome. You scratch again. You do not write poetry. Then, at the stroke of midnight, the horses start. They're restless in the lower courtyard, snorting, pawing at the mud, shifting nervously, swishing their tails in annoyance. War horses are massive beasts, powerful and easily agitated. One loud noise, one strange shadow, and suddenly the stables become a miniature battlefield. A loud bang echoes from outside the wall. A horse rears violently, neighing. Another kicks its stall. A soldier yells, sprinting to calm them. You watch from above as the stable hands, half-trained, half asleep, try to soothe the animals. Horses rear, stomp, lash out. A man narrowly dodges a hoof the size of your helmet. The soldier beside you sighs. They're worse than enemy cavalry when they panic. You nod. "Should we help?" He shakes his head. "Not unless you want fewer limbs." Reasonable. But the worst creatures are yet to come. Around the torches, you start noticing flickers, little dark shapes darting in fast, zigzagging bursts. At first, you think they're birds. They are not birds. They are bats. Dozens of them. They swoop overhead, wings flashing in the firelight, drawn by insects and general chaos. One skims so close to your helmet, it makes a soft whip sound over the metal. Another brushes your shoulder, sending you into a near-comical full-body flinch. "That's good luck," a soldier insists. "Really?" "No, but saying it helps me cope." That's joke three. You hunch deeper into your armor as bats circle overhead like furry little flying nightmares. One even lands briefly on a parapet stone, stares at you with beady little eyes, then flies, off as if deciding you are neither food nor a respectable perch. The night hums with animal noise, dogs barking, horses snorting, rats chittering, bats squeaking, insects buzzing, and layered over it all is the distant, ominous beat of enemy drums from beyond the walls. You grip your spear tighter, realizing that creatures aren't nuisances, they're warnings. Signs of food scarcity, hygiene collapse, rising disease, soldiers growing weaker, colder, hungrier. Your dog, yes, apparently still yours, noses your leg, licks your gauntlet, and curls beside you for warmth. You don't push him away. The soldier next to you whispers. Historians still argue whether animals on the battlefield helped morale or destroyed it. Personally, I think they just watched us make bad decisions. You chuckle weakly, stroking the dog's head. Because honestly, right now, the animals might be the only ones who understand this place better than you do. Dawn creeps slowly across the keeps, walls, painting everything in a pale, ghostly blue. You barely slept, not because of the drums, or the cold stone, or even the dog that snored directly into your ear, but because every creak, every shifting shadow kept your nerves stretched tight. Yet when sunlight finally warms your visor, you discover something new creeping into the morning air. Superstition. It starts before breakfast, if you can call yesterday's stale crust breakfast. A soldier stands beside the parapet, rubbing two small bones together like worry stones. He mutters something under his breath. You blink at him. He sees your confusion. Rabbit bones, he explains. For luck. You nod slowly. Do they work? He shrugs. Probably not, but if I drop them, I'll die instantly. That's joke one. You're not sure if he's joking. You decide not to ask, because as the morning unfolds, it becomes clear that everyone in the keep believes something odd. A man in a dented helmet draws a sigil, in the mud, with his spear tip, before stepping onto the battlements. A woman sharpening arrows quietly recites the same 3 words every time she finishes an arrowhead. A veteran refuses to walk through one specific archway, says he. Lost a friend there once, and the place is cursed. A quirky tidbit enters your mind. Medieval warriors were deeply superstitious, often interpreting omens in weather, dreams, animal behavior, or even the way bread cracked when torn. Battles were chaos, and humans cling to patterns when the world feels like drowning water. You watch another soldier stop mid-stride, frown at a crow perched on the outer wall, then immediately turn around and walk the other way. What was that about? You ask. Crow on the right side before sunrise means arrows today, he mutters. You look at the crow. The crow looks at you. It caws, loudly and unhelpfully. Fantastic. Minutes later, a group of archers gathers for morning prep. One insists on touching the same stone in the battlement before taking his position. Another refuses to use arrows fletched with black feathers. A third pours a few drops of water onto the ground, whispering, "For the spirits." "Spirits?" you whisper. He nods solemnly. "The ones who died here before us." You duck your head politely, in case any are listening. Then you catch sight of something truly baffling. A bearded soldier with a face like cracked leather stands at the corner of the parapet holding a turnip. You blink. Twice. He lifts the turnip, closes his eyes, and whispers to it. Then he tucks it into his belt and walks past you like nothing unusual happened. The soldier next to you groans. Not the turnip talks again. You know him? Everyone knows him. He thinks turnips absorb fear. Do they? No. But you try telling him that. That's joke too. Yet it isn't all strange objects and whispered rituals. Some of the superstitions come from raw, practical experience, disguised as mysticism. A veteran teaching 2 younger soldiers warns them not to tighten their bootstraps before noon. The sun softens the leather, and you'll blister. Another insists on tying a leather cord around his arm keeps my shield arm from shaking. A third refuses to eat onions on battle days. Bad luck, bad breath, worse morale. Superstitions, traditions, coping mechanisms. You're starting to realize they all blend together. As midday approaches, a soft breeze picks up. A scout on the tower top calls down, "Riders approaching." Everyone stiffens, hands tighten on weapons, shoulders tense, hearts spike. But then the scout adds, "Not enemy. Our colors." A murmur ripples through the courtyard. Reinforcements? Supplies? Messengers? A small group on horseback arrives, a banner fluttering behind them. They dismount, dust-covered and exhausted. A commander rushes to meet them. Soldiers gather nearby, whispering hopes and predictions. You overhear one man murmur, If they cross the river at dawn, that's a good omen. Means the water spirits bless us today. Another responds, historians still argue whether omen reading in armies improved morale or just made everything more confusing. That's joke 3. The messengers bring mixed news, supplies are delayed, reinforcements uncertain, the enemy repositioning. The usual emotional roller coaster. But one messenger pulls something from his satchel. A tiny wooden idol roughly carved, small enough to fit in a pocket. When he hands it to your commander, several soldiers cross themselves or bow their heads. "What is that?" you whisper. The veteran beside you answers quietly, "A soldier's charm, found on the body of a knight who won 5 battles before he fell." "Does it do anything?" The veteran shrugs. "It reminds us someone survived long enough to make a difference." You look at the charm, simple, worn, smooth, unremarkable. Yet somehow, half the soldiers seem to stand a little straighter. You realize something important. Superstitions aren't random. They're anchors. Small pockets of hope in a world where hope has to fight harder than any army. And as the afternoon sun hangs low and the drums begin again outside the walls, you clutch your spear and whisper something under your breath. Not a prayer, not a ritual, but a simple wish. "Let me make it through today." Maybe no one hears you. Maybe no spirit listens. But the dog beside you lifts its head, nudges your knee, and settles beside you like a silent guardian. For now, that's enough. Morning drags on with the slow, heavy pace of someone carrying far too much dread and not nearly enough food. Your stomach growls loudly enough to draw a glare from the soldier beside you. He raises an eyebrow. "You know what that means?" he says grimly. "That I'm hungry?" You reply. "That you're about to be disappointed." That's joke 1. Because if the battlefield has taught you anything, it's that nothing prepares you for medieval military rations. A shout echoes across the courtyard. "Food! Line up!" The energy among the soldiers shifts instantly. Men hurry, limp, or drag themselves toward a set of barrels and crates near the inner wall. You join the shuffling line, unsure if you're hopeful or terrified. A cook ladles something into wooden bowls, something greyish, thick, shapeless, a bit too alive, looking for comfort. You squint. "What is that?" The soldier, ahead of you, sighs. "Pottage." You wait for further explanation. None comes. So, soup, stew, porridge, whatever it wants to be. The cook scoops a ladleful into your bowl with the enthusiasm of a man who stopped caring yesterday. The glob lands with a wet plorp that trembles ominously. You stare at it. It stares back. A quirky tidbit bubbles up. Pottage was the most common medieval meal. Grain, beans, vegetables, maybe meat if you were lucky, cooked down into something vaguely edible. Its nutritional value depended entirely on what you had lying around. Sometimes that meant onions, carrots, herbs, and sometimes it meant weeds, scraps, or mystery bits. You hesitate. The dog sitting beside you sniffs the bowl, backs away slowly, and leaves. So, that's not a good sign. Still, hunger wins. You take a spoonful. It tastes earthy, very earthy, also questionable. You swallow anyway. The soldier next to you grins. "Your first siege pottage, eh?" "It tastes like regret," you mutter. He nods. "That means it's fresh." You choke a little. That's joke 2. Around you, soldiers eat in silence, some grimacing, some savouring, some trading bits from their bowls like medieval Pokemon cards. One man proudly pulls a tiny shred of meat from his serving and shows it off like a rare treasure. Another marks his bowl with a stick, muttering, "For luck next time." Then comes the bread. Calling it, bread is generous. It's dense, hard, and has a texture suspiciously similar to gravel. You hit it against your helmet as a test. It makes a metallic toke. The soldier across from you nods approvingly. "That's good bread," he says. You blink. It sounds like a weapon. It can be. A historical fact surfaces. Siege bread was often made with whatever flour could be scraped together: barley husks, pea flour, ground beans, and sometimes sawdust when desperation hit. Yes, sawdust. Chroniclers actually described it as bread of last resort. You bite down carefully. Your tooth aches. The bread tastes gritty. You suspect minerals not normally featured in cuisine. A veteran 3 seats down lifts his own chunk with reverence. Bread builds character, he declares. Another soldier snorts. Bread breaks teeth. He's not wrong. You wash it down with a gulp of watered ale that tastes like someone whispered flavor at it once. But the real test comes when the cook brings out a second pot, a stew of something so aromatic, in the bad sense. Soldiers lean back as it's carried by. The cook ladles it onto a plate and presents it proudly. Pickled fish mash. You stare at the greyish-pink heap. The smell hits you like an insult. What did the fish do to deserve this? You whisper. The soldier beside you responds without missing a beat. It got caught. That's joke 3. Despite its appearance, you try a bite. It's sour, salty, mushy, and aggressively unpleasant. But at least it's protein, and nutrition is survival. Later, the cook returns with something worse. Dried beans. Just dried beans. Not cooked, not soaked, just beans. Eat them slowly, someone warns, or your stomach will declare war. You tuck them into a pouch of your gambazon. You'll probably eat them out of desperation in 6 hours. But nothing, not the pottage, not the bread, not the bean pebbles, prepares you for the moment the quartermaster announces. Tonight's dinner, salt pork. Cheers erupt. Actual cheers. You brighten a little yourself. Salt pork sounds edible. Then you see it. A slab of meat so hard it could deflect arrows. So salty it could preserve itself until the next century. So dry you fear it might absorb all moisture from your body just by proximity. You gnaw on a piece anyway. It tastes like salted leather left out in the sun. Still, it's better than the pottage. Soldiers around you swap stories about food. One recalls a siege where they survived on boiled leather straps. Another mentions trench bread made of crushed acorns. A third shudders at the memory of roasted rats. The veteran across from you says, historians still argue whether siege diets killed more men than enemy swords. You believe him instantly. Eventually you finish your meal, stomach both full and confused. You sit back, wiping your hands on a cloth that definitely isn't clean. The dog returns, sniffing, for leftovers, and you break off a tiny biscuit for him. He sniffs it, looks at you, walks away. That says everything. As you lean against the cold stone wall, your stomach groaning in protest, you realize an awful truth. On a medieval battlefield, the food isn't nourishment. It's a negotiation, one that your digestive system is currently losing. And tomorrow's menu? Probably worse. You spend the rest of the afternoon alternating between patrol shifts, water runs, and trying not to think too hard about the pottage still swirling uncomfortably in your stomach. But as dusk settles over the keep, the enemy begins another maneuver, this time a slow, deliberate tightening of their lines around the walls. The siege is entering a new phase. And the part no one warned you about? The aftermath. Not the aftermath of the entire battle. The aftermath of every little clash, every breach attempt, every skirmish in the dark. This is where the battlefield becomes its own creature, hungry, unpredictable, and strangely personal. The horn sounds once, low and somber. A second time, shorter. Then a shout echoes from the western gate. Scout party incoming. Open. You rush with others to take position along the walkway overlooking the gate. Torches flicker in the wind. The heavy wooden doors creak open, just enough to admit a battered group limping inside. You count 5. Soldiers. Only 3 walk on their own. The other 2 are being carried. Your stomach twists. Skirmishes around the siege perimeter happen constantly. Not full battles, but probing attacks, ambushes, harassing encounters meant to test defenses and morale. These men look like they tangled with something far worse. One has a broken shield. Another drips blood through his torn gambesson. A third keeps glancing over his shoulder, as if something might still be following him. Medics rush in, if you can call men holding buckets and towels medics, and drag the injured away. You watch them disappear into the infirmary, where you really don't want to return. A veteran beside you sighs. This is the part that wears you down. What part? You ask quietly. The knowing it's never really over. The aftershocks. The waiting for the next hit. A historical fact rises unwelcome. Many battles didn't end with a clean retreat. They dribbled into lingering encounters, raids at dawn, night assaults, sudden feints meant to force defenders into panic. The aftermath could last hours, or days, or weeks. Tonight, it lasts minutes. A horn blares again, sharper, urgent. Archers, walls, shields up. Enemy movement north. You race along the battlement, boots slipping on damp stone. Torches bob in the wind as archers line up, bows raised, eyes fixed into the growing dark. You grip your spear, heart pounding. Shapes appear at the tree line. Flickers of movement, shadows that don't quite match the wind. Then arrows. A volley cutting through the twilight. Your wall erupts with sound. Shields clatter as men hide behind parapets. Arrows slam into stone. One skids along your helmet with a screech that makes you flinch so violently you nearly jump off the wall. "That one wanted your name," a soldier shouts. "Tell it I'm not home," you yell back. That's joke one. The attack lasts only a few minutes probing. Fire. A test of your vigilance. Then the shadows pull back. Torches retreat. Silence returns. But it's not restful silence. It's the kind that presses on your ribs. You stand there, breathing ragged, sweat cold on your neck. You realize you're shaking not just from adrenaline, but from the fact that this tiny clash could happen again at any hour. And it does. Hours pass. Twilight becomes darkness. Darkness becomes moonlight. The enemy returns twice, once with arrows, once with ladders they never fully commit to climbing. Each time, horns sound. Each time, you rush to the wall. Each time, blood pressure skyrockets. You're starting to understand why medieval soldiers aged like they lived through 3 lifetimes. Then finally the attacks stop. The enemy pulls back. A truce of exhaustion settles. And with that truce comes the true aftermath. Down in the courtyard, the commanders gather soldiers for the grim work of identifying bodies. Not many fell today, only 3 from the skirmish. 1 from the walls, but that's enough to darken the entire keep's mood. You help carry a stretcher toward a quiet corner where torches have been set up. The body beneath the tarp is small, lighter than you expected. Barely older than 16. Your throat tightens. A soldier beside you whispers, "He was on his first patrol." Another shakes his head. Historians still argue whether most medieval soldiers even saw 20. You swallow. That's joke too bitter, quiet, too true to laugh at properly. A chaplain arrives and murmurs a short prayer. The boy's friends kneel silently. Everyone else stands awkwardly, half mourning, half terrified, all exhausted. You feel the weight of the moment pressing like a stone on your chest. This isn't the heroic battlefield aftermath songs romanticize. This is the human version, the quiet grief, the numb acceptance, the forced pragmatism. When the moment ends, the stretcher is moved to a makeshift cart. 2 soldiers pull it away. No ceremony, no procession, just necessity. Later, you help clean the battlements. You pry an arrow from the stone. You wipe soot from the parapet. You stack rocks for defenses. A veteran beside you sighs. This is the part no one tells stories about. What part? The after, the quiet, the cleanup, the thinking. He spits over the wall. Thinking is the worst enemy of all. That's joke 3. When the night finally settles, the drums stop, and the torches burn low. You sit on the cold stone, dog curled against your leg, and watch the flickering lights of the enemy camp. Tomorrow may bring another clash. Or not. Tomorrow may bring a full assault, or another probing attack, or another day of waiting and hunger. But the aftermath, the grief, the fatigue, the monotonous, emotionally heavy labor will always arrive. And in this moment, you understand something deeply unsettling. Sometimes the battle isn't the hardest part. It's surviving everything that comes immediately after. Dawn breaks once more, soft, pale, and far too quiet. You sit up slowly, joints stiff, armor damp, every muscle begging you to stop playing medieval hero. The dog beside you stretches, yawns, then immediately curls back into a ball, like he's made a firm decision about participating in today's chaos. Absolutely not. You envy him deeply. But your day isn't optional. A horn sounds from the central tower, not sharp and alarming this time, but steady and low. A summons. A report here before we decide what misery awaits you kind of call. You join the shuffle of soldiers toward the courtyard. The commanders stand gathered near the broken fountain, discussing quietly. Their faces are grim, their armor scuffed, their voices hushed enough to set every nerve in your body on alert. You inch closer, catching fragments. Supplies delayed 2 more days. Enemy shifting formations. Possible breach attempt. Reinforcements. Uncertain. Hold position at all costs. The words churn in your stomach. A soldier beside you whispers, "We're not getting out today." Another replies, "We're lucky if we get out this week." Then the commander with the plume. Yes, that plume is still bravely attached, mounts a crate and shouts, "All able soldiers, form up for inspection." You line up. Again. Your armor feels heavier today. Again. Your visor fogs. Again. The commander paces. He looks tired, deeply tired but determined. "You've held this keep through cavalry, through siege fire, through night raids," he says. "Now we prepare for the long march home." You blink. Home? A murmur ripples through the formation. Someone whispers, "We're breaking out?" Another says, "We're retreating under cover of darkness." A third mutters, "We're all doomed. Ignore him." The commander raises his voice. Orders from the high command. Tonight, under moonless sky, we begin an exodly time, organized withdrawal, quiet, slow, precise. Your heart thumps. You're leaving the keep, marching through enemy lines, in the dark. Perfect. Exactly what your anxiety needed. A historical fact tries to console you. Night withdrawals were risky but sometimes effective, allowing armies to slip past siege lines before the enemy noticed. But chroniclers also note that half of these plans failed spectacularly. Comforting. The veteran beside you mutters, "Historians still argue whether retreats like these were bravery or desperation. I say, why not both?" That's joke one. For the rest of the day, preparations begin. Quiet ones, deliberate ones, no trumpets, no banners, no cheering. You help pack food, mostly terrible, water skins, mostly muddy, and weapons, mostly dented, beyond dignity. You help dismantle sharpened stakes, so no one stumbles over them tonight. You help spread mud over any torchlight that might glow too brightly. As dusk approaches, the tension becomes electric. Every soldier moves quieter than usual. Every clink of armor feels too loud. Every cough feels criminal. Finally, night falls, moonless, starless, heavy. You assemble in the lower courtyard. The gates crack open just enough for a single file line. The air feels thick with nerves. Someone mutters a prayer. Someone else kisses a rabbit bone charm. Someone breathes deeply and whispers, "Turnip, don't fail me now." That's joke two. Then the commander, plume drooping, slightly lifts his hand. Go. The march begins. You step into the cold night, boots sinking silently into soft earth. The dog pads beside you, unusually serious. Ahead, shapes move like shadows, your fellow soldiers creeping forward, hugging the tree line. You follow them, heart pounding, every sound magnified, every snapping twig a death sentence. But somehow, it works. The enemy doesn't stir. Their torches burn lazily. Their patrols circle idly. Their campfires crackle in sleepy disinterest. You move, and move, and move. Until finally, you cross beyond their range. Only when the commander whispers, "We're clear. Do you dare breathe again?" The retreat becomes a march, still tense, but now filled with a dawning, cautious relief. Hours later, as the sky lightens with the first hints of morning, you crest a small hill. The long, battered road to home stretches before you. You stop, take a slow breath, feel your legs trembling, your arms aching, your stomach complaining. The soldier beside you chuckles weakly. Well, you survived a minute on a medieval battlefield, maybe even two. That's joke three. And as exhausted as you are, mud-caked, bruised, hungry, smelling like wet despair, you feel it. Relief. Exhaustion. A strange, fragile pride. Because you made it through. You endured the cavalry, the arrows, the siege engines, the weather, the superstitions, the rations, the aftermath. You survived the violence and the waiting. You survived the chaos and the waiting. Silence. You survived the worst bedtime history adventure imaginable. And now, you walk toward the rising sun. Armor clinking softly, dog trotting loyally beside you. Heart slower, steps steadier, and the nightmare battlefield fades behind you finally, mercifully into memory. And now, as you leave that distant world far behind, let the pace slow, let the sounds soften, Let your breath ease gently in and out. Imagine yourself walking along a quiet path, far from danger, far from shouting, far from any clash of metal or rumble of hooves. The air is warmer now, softer, carrying only the faint hum of morning insects and the subtle whisper of wind through tall grass. With each step, the heavy weight of armor melts away piece by piece until you feel light again. Your boots no longer sink into mud. Instead, they rest on a smooth, calm trail. The sky above brightens in the gentlest shades of pink and gold, and the sun stretches its warmth across your shoulders. Your muscles loosen. Your breath deepens. The tension of the siege, the chaos of the battlefield, the uncertainty of every moment, all of it drifts away like mist lifting from the earth. You pause for a moment on that quiet road home, noticing how still everything has become. The world is peaceful, patient, waiting only for you to rest. Even the loyal little dog curls beside you, settling into the grass with a soft sigh. Let your eyes grow heavier now. Let your thoughts drift like slow clouds. Let your body sink deeper into comfort. There is no rushing here, no danger, no noise, only a calm night gently holding you. You've traveled far. You've endured more than most ever would. And now, you've earned the deepest rest. So breathe softly, sink into stillness, and let sleep find you, warm and easy, wherever you are.